Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining us. Let me
Wa
just
alaikum assalam
close.
wa rahmatullah.
Fantastic. It's such a beautiful day here in my city of Coventry here in the UK. You can tell by the sun and the rays coming into my little studio here. First of all, I'd like to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving me this a beautiful opportunity again to sit with our brother Yusuf Ismail all the way from South Africa. And brothers and sisters, don't forget to subscribe to Yusuf's channel. It's called the South African Debate Initiative. So for sure, SADI. But when you type it up to YouTube, type in the South African Debate Initiative. Don't forget to subscribe to Yusuf's channel. He's got some very good content on there. Got some classical uh, discussions in there, some former debates and whatnot. Very, very, very good, mashallah. Thank you, sister, always for joining us. I know you're in America, but we'll be talking on a very, very serious topic, brothers and sisters. As you've been watching, and if you haven't been watching, like Brother Yusuf said last time, either you're in a cave somewhere or you're like an ostrich burying your head in the sand. You can see what's happening right now, the genocide that's taking place in front of our eyes. And, we feel helpless. But I'm hoping by these streams that we do, myself and Brother Yusuf and everybody else in the chat and people who will watch it later on, either here on my channel or Yusuf's channel or on my Rumble channel, will actually start to open their eyes and benefit from these streams. Recently, there's been reports over 1 million people fleeing from Rafah, and they were told to go there. The population of 1 million people were told to go there because it was a safe haven. And now they are leaving that place due to this so-called red line that we've heard by this American individual, Joe Biden, saying that the red line. And that red line has been crossed. And again, it's hypocrisy to the highest standards. And I'm going to pass the mic on to Brother Yusuf because he can control his temperament a lot better than I can. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, Brother Yusuf. Nice to see you again.
It's great seeing you again. And, it sounds like, it looks like it's morning in the United Kingdom. But really, that looks like an early morning for us. I'm told it's about 7 o'clock. To have that kind of sunlight and sunshine at 7, it's unheard of in the Southern Hemisphere. So even in a hot summer's day, it'll be dark at 7 o'clock in the evening. So that looks like an early morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. But jokes aside, on a serious note, certainly what is happening in Gaza over the past several months has been heart-wrenching. And I think one of the more recent issues that now needs to obviously come out has been an excellent analysis by one of the reporters by the name of Jeffrey Diamond from CNN, where he makes the point in a recent article for CNN, and he was an embedded journalist. He was a journalist that had basically exposed the scam of the tunnels underneath the graves in Gaza. And he made a point that Netanyahu may be forced to choose between his government's survival and, in fact, a ceasefire deal. And the reality of the situation is as follows, that for months, Netanyahu has basically been, kind of engaged in this kind of idea whereby at all costs, he wanted to collapse negotiations with Hamas. The week after the kidnapping by Hamas of these particular Israeli hostages, Hamas were open for a deal. And Netanyahu basically scuttled it. And at this particular juncture, you've got this nutcase that is taking credit for it, this geriatric, senile old man, Joe Biden, who's clearly a liar, clearly compromised. But there is a proposal on the table which Hamas has, in fact, accepted. And what has happened since then is that the National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, that's the name, remember he's the name of this fanatic, Bezalel Smotrich, and many other far-right members, extreme members from Netanyahu's cabinet and coalition, are already threatening to dissolve or bolt from the government or to cause its collapse if the prime minister follows through. So they've openly stated that they've threatened to topple the government. There are two individuals, Smotrich, the finance minister, and Ben-Gvir, have basically stated that if Netanyahu were to accept this peace proposal laid out by Biden, which would obviously amount to a release of hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners, certain Palestinian prisoners. We must understand that there are about approximately 8,000 to 9,000 Palestinians kept as hostages by Israel in Israeli dungeons since October 7th. But with the ceasefire being in place, it would basically mean that the attack on Gaza would have to come to an end. And what these two individuals here, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, they've made it explicitly clear that they reject a ceasefire. And Netanyahu, following through, has also signaled that he's not ready. And basically, if he agrees to a ceasefire, it'll essentially mean the end of this war on Gaza, this devastation on Gaza, this destroying of Gaza. And that would basically mean that it would be the end of the political life for Netanyahu. So the Smotrich and Ben-Gvir have essentially stated that the only way out of this, the only way is a total destruction of Hamas and what they call the return of the hostages. My question is that the hostages may possibly even have been blown up by Israel by virtue of the callous and deliberate carpet bombing that we've seen for the past several months. So that is a situation at this particular juncture that the extremists within that Netanyahu, I mean, everybody's a lunatic within that particular cabinet. Everybody's a lunatic. But right now you've got a situation once again that Hamas has basically agreed to a ceasefire and Israel is rejecting the ceasefire. So who's at war? You have a situation that, and by the way, Israeli society is not basically a benevolent society. Israelis don't, in fact, show much care for the Palestinians in a general sense. But now you've got a situation where since May 11th, there's been an increasing impetus in calling for the government to end its war on Gaza and in fact release hostages. Not that they care about the Palestinians, but they're getting frustrated by the particular government, the regime of Netanyahu. I mean, a poll that was conducted by Israel's Channel 11 when was it? Today's Monday, I think last week, they put Israel's public support for the ceasefire at about 40%, with about 27% opposed and 33% unsure. This is the reality of the situation. And now we have a situation whereby you've got a potential deal. Hamas has been accepting these deals, and Netanyahu is rejected. Because what happens if Netanyahu rejects this particular deal? If he continues the war, that means his political life will continue. If he accepts the ceasefire, it'll mean he has to stop the war. And in all possibility, in all probability, his political career will come to an end. He will then possibly be criminally charged and faced with a degree and a scenario of possibly prosecution for fraud. And so and then of course he'd have to come onto the table and explain the failures of what happened on October 7th. How is it that the tightest security in the world allowed this to happen for hours on end before the helicopter gunships came and basically mowed down both Hamas individuals as well as Israeli hostages that were being taken away? So that's the reality that we have at this juncture, Brother Mohammed. And so the situation it doesn't stop. The dire situation still continues for the Palestinians. The Palestinians are are still basically struggling. I mean, as a general, just an update at this particular point in time, as we are talking, there have been about 50 dead bodies that have just been recovered by at the Jabalia refugee camp. 50 dead bodies have been recovered at this particular juncture. And more than 1 million people that were forced to flee Gaza. As of the 3rd of June, that's today, and going back to the last 24 hours, Israel killed 40 people. They murdered 40 people. Now, I mean, we've reached such a stage of desensitization that it doesn't really matter. People take this so lightly. Oh, it's just 40 people that have died. Well, turn the situation around. What if Israelis were killed? What if 40 Israelis were killed? Then that would basically trigger a massive response. Because prior to October 7th, we had the highest death rate on the West Bank. Where was the global outrage? We had the highest death rate of children being killed on the West Bank. Where was the global outrage? So it's quite clear that only some lives matter and other lives don't matter. Israeli lives matter, Palestinian lives don't matter. And so this is the situation. And I think the other point is this, is that there are doubts about the truce proposal by virtue of the fact that at this juncture, both Netanyahu and Gallant are facing potential arrest warrants from the ICC. So from Netanyahu's perspective, it's unlikely that he would want to continue and go ahead with the ceasefire. But you never know. How long will the war continue? How long will this war continue?
Well, the reports are, brother. Can you hear me, brother?
I can hear you clearly.
Yeah, the reports are that the IDF don't have enough troops to basically finish the job off. I've heard that recently, that every time they send a battalion of troops to another location, the resistance fighters seem to gain hold of the area that they just kind of left, thinking they've kind of like, destroyed the whole area. But in reality, they have to go back in a later time. And this is another question which I've actually put out there to the people, is that, and the question that you raised just now, subhanAllah, is the fact that how long will it take? They are saying maybe a year or so for them to basically demolish Gaza completely to the ground. But the war, as even today, some of the reporters are saying that is the IDF will not win the war. They haven't achieved any of their goals that they initially intended to do. Stop the rockets, stop Hamas, get the hostages, and basically reoccupy that land. They haven't really done any of that. And the important point that you touched on, that that the hierarchy of the Israeli government are struggling right now. I think they are panicking. They want to delay the war. They want to initially start another war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and I think that will give the hierarchy in the Israeli government more time to kind of like live, because like you said, a lot of them are going to be convicted criminals if this war ends soon. Sorry, brother Yusuf, I know I went on for too long, but nevertheless, that they have to keep on making this conflict stretch out. Otherwise, all of them will be convicted, and the majority of them will be put in prison. If I'm correct in that, brother Yusuf.
No, I agree with that. I want to share a screen. Yeah, there's it there. That's the screen I wanted to share, just to go on the point that you basically raised, which is the fact that the Israeli army is finished. I mean, this is a report from France 24, and just this is on the 3rd of June, issued today, that Israeli troops are getting hell. Hamas and Hezbollah are basically stretching the Israeli. I mean, the resistance has been spectacular. So what you've got a situation is that they are being stretched on multiple fronts. This is a report by News 24. It says, yeah, and this is as the war is going into its 9th month, Israeli military is getting pulled deeper into conflict on multiple fronts and risks being overstretched, already being overstretched. The Israeli military is stretched to the point right now where it's operating in Gaza and in the north and in the West Bank, and that is having a strain on its capabilities. This is by Raima Dejin, an expert in Israel, and told the Palestinians, Israel's army is one of the best funded militaries, but it relies on reservists for much of its fighting force. And according to the Gaza War Unit Tracker, an account of social, nearly all of Israel's 15,000 active duty combat soldiers, all are currently engaged in fighting. So they're being basically stretched completely. And what have they succeeded besides murdering 40,000 men, women, and children, mainly in 50, I think now close to 20,000 children? Have they succeeded in getting rid of Hamas? No, Hamas is basically recovering and now fighting them back in the north. Because look at the analysts saying the resurgence of fighting in parts of northern Gaza, where the military said months ago Hamas had been neutralized, shows the strategy has failed. Since January, February, Israel has pursued a strategy of surgical limited operations instead of staying in the territory, which has killed everybody. This whole strategy has failed. This whole strategy has basically failed. So Israel, as it is totally failed. Then they've got Hezbollah that they need to basically deal with. So the resistance is in fact doing well. And I'd urge people to go onto the website. This is from France 24, but I urge individuals to go onto the website, the Electronic Intifada, where these resistance fighters are highlighted. And the fact that Israel is failing on all accounts, Israel is not succeeding. And essentially, the whole aim of this particular so-called war was to destroy Hamas. Has Israel succeeded? No. The whole aim was to get the hostages back. Has Israel succeeded? No. The whole aim was to, according to them, basically limit their attacks, particularly in destroying Hamas. Have they succeeded in that? No, they've killed 40,000 innocent civilians in the process, and they can't all have been accidental murder. So this is the reality of the situation, that they failed on all counts, And then from a propaganda point of view, has Israel succeeded? The answer is no, because global opinion has now shifted against Israel. Global opinion has now exposed itself against a kind of Zionist skullduggery. And people are basically seeing that Zionism is a violent, evil, satanic, belligerent ideology, which is out there to destroy and kill. And I mean, we see this in different parts of the world, violence being perpetrated by Zionists towards pro-Palestinians. We've seen that in the universities in the United States, where pro-Israeli thugs were engaged in hostile attacks against peaceful Palestinian protesters. We see that in the United Kingdom, where far-right extremist pro-Israeli groups have attacked most of your Palestinian peace marches. I mean, you've been on your peace marches, the Palestinian protests, I assume, Brother Mohammed, in London. I don't know. I've never seen any statement or slogan which is called for killing of Jews. Have you seen anything like that? Because I see that always mentioned on GB News and Talk TV and some of these far-right television news programs. But there's never been any
no, there hasn't.
Negative. Has it?
There hasn't been hardly no violence whatsoever. They're peaceful. But the double side to this, just the other day, we had the so-called pro-English hooligans, half drunk skinheads walking down in London and protesting. And nevertheless, a lot of the police were called in, a lot of arrests were made because they were very violent. Anytime they saw a sister with a hijab on or a Muslim, they would try to initiate some type of hostilities towards them. And many of these far-right English extremists were arrested. But when it comes to the protests, Brother Yusuf, you and the sister mentioned in the chat just a couple of minutes ago, is that a lot of the protests are not really being shown on the TV. They are kind of kept on the quiet. As you know, Suella Braverman, she basically was sacked due to her understanding of plus her husband being a Zionist, and of course then you got our Rishi Sunak and his wife, and they are all taking donations from pro-lobby Israeli organizations. So it's being kind of put out there, but at the same time, the protests are being hidden because the elections are going to come here soon, and a lot of the parties are worried that their stance regarding the ceasefire and the peace in the Middle East is basically nullified, and they will be exposed big time in the elections. But Brother Yusuf, if I don't mind asking you a question, recently I read a report regarding how many miscarriages and young children are going through starvation, and women are with newborns are basically, they cannot look, the what newborns are struggling to eat, to drink, and get the nourishments that they need, and the rate of miscarriages have increased so much in the population now in Gaza. Do you mind just touching upon that, if you don't mind, brother?
There was, in fact, I need to probably search for it, but as at January, I think we did discuss this in part in one of the earlier streams in February, but from what I recall telling you on that occasion is that the assault on Gaza Strip, and we're not talking about babies dying, just babies dying born and then dying, or babies dying, or women dying under cesarean section. But you had a situation where, for example, the attack on Gaza has caused miscarriages to increase by approximately 300%. 300%. I mean, that's insane. Under what circumstances would you ever see such a situation? In fact, let me just try and see. There was an article I was looking at and reading in the New Arab. I think it was in the New Arab. If I can get this in the New Arab, the miscarriage rates in Gaza. Here we are. I don't know if the screen is open. Can you see this on your screen? If you can put that on your screen, yeah. I think you've controlled. This is the case. A grave affair. Miscarriage rates in Gaza turn pregnancy into a death sentence. This was on the 31st of January. So it's a couple of months back. And I mean, we need to obviously keep up with the news. But back then, this is the 31st of January. And we know where, I mean, it was extreme, the attacks and the murders, but nowhere near the scale to what we've seen now. But at that stage, the miscarriage rate was increased by approximately 300%. 300%. This was the doctor that I was talking about, Dr. Tanya Haj Hassan from the Médecins Sans Frontières. And she basically stated the following. This is her quotation. I went to the hospital because I was really sick. I went to the doctor and she examined me. The doctor told me the fetus had no pulse. There was no hope, said a 4-month pregnant woman in Gaza who lost her unborn child after enduring stress from seeing a house bombed and rushed to the hospital. Many pregnant women deliver outside of the hospital because they can't reach it. There's a very high incidence of preterm labor and abortion, and many cases of sepsis and neonatal deaths. Health organizations have reported a 300% surge in miscarriages amongst women in Gaza since Israel bombing campaign on the besieged Palestinian enclave. And back in early November, this is November last year, UN agencies warned that women were not able to give birth safely and maternal deaths would ramp up given the lack of access to adequate care. They also alerted that psychological toll of the fighting had a direct impact on the reproductive health. I mean, this is the reality. The Emirati hospital, I mean, there were still hospitals, and now, this is January, there are no hospitals. There are no hospitals that can basically, what are we going to do in the situation now? Back then, there were 1 or 2 hospitals existing. But now, there are no hospitals. I mean, there's virtually nothing in Gaza, nothing at all. So this is a reality. Amy Goodman, for example, on Democracy Now!, she did a phenomenal interview in March that basically warned the fact that the infants were essentially on the brink of death, if not already on starvation in March. Right now, Israel's forced starvation has killed dozens of children. This is one example here. This is one example. Let's open this. Let's open this. This is a distressing image. This was just, and we need to keep up with the news because the news doesn't wait for us any longer. Let me share this. Let me share this latest report, which is 5 hours ago. Since you brought this up, 5 hours ago, Israel's forced starvation. I'm going to share this. Can you see the screen? Brother Mohammed, here we are. This is Rwanda. This is Somalia and Ethiopia in the 80s. If you recall the starvation and the famine in Ethiopia and Somalia and parts of Central Africa in the 80s, that's what it was never like this never like this. As bad as the situation was, never like this in Gaza. This is a 7-month-old Fayez Abu Aita died due to severe malnutrition. Let people see this. That's the whole thing.
شايف ابني كيف؟ من المستشفيات ومن الحرب. ايش بدك احلى من هيك؟ هيك راح ضرب. صحينا الصبح لقيناه زي ما هو هيك، زي الورد.
That's a baby. That's him. And look at how the skin is shriveled up. Look at the baby.
كان الولد طالب الغذاء، طالب الحليب، طالب الشربات اللازمه، والحصاد اللي احنا فيه الحمد لله مش محرمنا من حاجه، لا في عندنا اي حاجه للاطفال، حياه اللي بخلي الطفل بغزه. لو طلع على بلاد برا الحمد لله كان لقيته شاب وما شاء الله عليه. هذا ما لحقناش لا نسفره ولا لحقناش.
Look at the arms. I want people out there who are listening and pro-Israeli scumbags out there. Look at this.
هي حاجه.
Another starving baby. This is another child, Abdul Qadir, 13-year-old boy. This is a 13-year-old boy. Look at his chest. People out there, viewers, look at this boy's chest.
بسبب إغلاق المعابر من قبل قوات الاحتلال الإسرائيلي أدى إلى أمراض كثيرة في داخل قطاع غزة ومنها سوء التغذية وسوء الامتصاص، وهذا بسبب منع الاحتلال دخول الأغذية وخاصة الحليب عند الأطفال، مما أدى إلى ضعف شديد في الجسم وسوء نمو شديد وإصابتهم بكثير من الأمراض.
أنا بطعمي حاليا يعني بس كحليب ما فيش حليب يعني.
So mothers cannot even breastfeed their children because they don't have the nutrition to produce milk to feed the children. So how can a baby even feed in a situation of this nature?
طعمي بس إيش في عندي يصير لك؟
طول الوقت بيأمن، بينامش الليل هو يأمن يتونون من الوجع. يعني في مغص كثير عنده هذا ونفخة كثيرة. يعني هاي العملية اليوم أجلوها ممكن يصير عنده انفجار في الأمعاء.
See, you know why the intestines burst? Do people know why the intestines burst? Have you seen pictures earlier, of little African children in the past, in the 70s and 80s? Because we always saw this in Africa. People thought, oh, this is Africa. And the African famine was induced by the West. It was not starvation. It was not because of the fact that they had lack of resources. It was induced by European Western imperialism. Read the book, The Globalization of Poverty by Professor Michel Chossudovsky from the Center for Research and Globalization at the University of Ottawa. And now she speaks about the fact that the intestines may burst. That can only happen if a child's got kwashiorkor. Kwashiorkor is caused as a result of extreme hunger. Now, this is not hunger because there's no food. There's not hunger because there's a lack of food or lack of resources. They're not being given the opportunity to even have the food. They don't need the food. The Palestinians don't need the food of others if only they were allowed to basically have their own system of government in place or have their own system of not basically being dependent on the evil Israelis. So this is induced hunger, induced forced starvation. And that's why the ICC prosecutor, Karim Khan, went and applied to get the arrest warrants issued against Netanyahu and that psychopath Galan. So let's
يصير عنده انفجار في الأمعاء.
Now imagine this situation. Here they are making ghusl. Can you see this? They're making ghusl of this little boy like a skeleton. He died. They're washing him, giving him the burial bath. I mean, is this what he deserved in life? So that's the situation that you've got here. And I know this basically makes me, it's heart-wrenching for certain individuals to see such particular actions. But it angers me. It angers me. And I had a program a couple of months ago on another channel, Loving Life TV. We were just simply showing the Palestinian suffering. YouTube shut the channel down. They shut the channel down. Loving Life TV. It's an Australian platform, and the platform was shut down because we had the gall to show Palestinian suffering. But all kinds of filth and immorality and obscenities and bestialities of the worst kind can be shown on YouTube, and YouTube will allow it. But they will shut down channels like they did during the COVID era. When you spoke about the vaccinations or anything like that, channels were shut down. When you spoke about the lockdown, they shut down the channels. So it's kind of self-censorship. What angers me is that when people come out of their cocoons and see the evil that is being perpetrated by this particular regime, those pro-Zionist thugs out there that want to defend this kind of evil. And I may ask even those so-called thuggish Muslim leaders, because if you had if the Muslim leaders of the world or the so-called Muslim leaders had the decency and the moral proclivity to stand up against this kind of insanity, this kind of evil before our eyes, Israel would never get away with it. Israel would never get away with it. If Saudi Arabia, if Egypt, if Jordan, if Qatar, if some of these other Middle Eastern Arab tin pot dictators had the gall to stand up against the Israeli regime, against the evil that he's perpetrating, none of this would have happened. It happened because we allow it to happen. In fact, there's a hadith, this famous hadith by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where they question him, where the people of the world will be essentially, I'm just paraphrasing it, speaking about your destruction, and the response was, and then the Sahaba, the companions, were shocked. They were saying, how is this possible? Will we be so few in number? He says, no, you will be huge in number, enormous in number, but you will be like the kind of the froth and the foam of the ocean. You'll be a nothing. And that's essentially what's happening. This kind of humility. If the Muslim world, and I don't like to talk in absolutes of dichotomies of black and white or Darul Harb and Darul Islam, because those categories don't exist in the world today in the classical sense. But I'm saying is that if the Muslim world leadership had it within themselves the morality of standing up against this kind of oppression, not even getting physically involved. If you're too cowardly, that your cowardice only allows you to oppress and persecute religious scholars and your own political dissidents. If you are too cowardly to get involved in a physical battle with Israel and America, we can understand that, but just simply don't trade. Where's Turkey? Don't deal with them. Don't trade in them, or basically put an ultimatum to the United States in terms of the petroleum. You've got that power. You've got the economic power. If the United Arab Emirates, if the Emirati states, if Qatar, if some of these, Egypt, if some of the North African Arab states just took, and Turkey as an example that seems to bark a lot but do very little, if they had the gall in them to simply economically strangulate Israel, none of this would have happened. None of this would have happened. If they put an ultimatum to the United States, none of this would have happened. So this is the reality of the situation, that as much as we find these images heart-wrenching because of the evil of the Zionist regime, Muslim leaders globally have to take accountability for what they are seeing, for what we are seeing around here. And we need to hold them accountable. George Orwell, or was it, somebody that said that the greatest truth is speaking truth in times of universal deceit. Telling the truth is a revolutionary act. We need to tell this truth to our leaders, to these so-called leaders, religious leaders, political leaders, all of them, galvanize them together to speak out against this kind of insanity that you see here before our very eyes. The reality of the situation is the wrong people are in leadership. Just like in my country, the wrong people are in positions of leadership. And that's why you have a situation where there's so much of poverty and deprivation and degradation and desperation by people throughout the world in relation to what you see happening. So that's just my rant in this shocking images that I decided to show you. And it just kind of woke me up seeing this kind of insanity that you see here.
Yeah, those images are really heartbreaking, especially for those brothers and sisters who've got nieces and nephews, sons and daughters, granddaughters, grandsons. It's really heartbreaking. And this is really a message to everybody out there who's watching this stream, is to share this stream to all your friends and your family on your social media outlets. We need to get this message out. And I do feel YouTube have kind of like limited my channel to a certain audience, or a kind of like a small graph of people. So we really need to push this out, brothers and sisters. Try your best to share the streams on your social media. Let everybody know, so we can basically get this information out. There's something else I wanted to ask you, Brother Yusuf, is regarding this red line that this so-called this old man who really can't even walk, can't even find his way around the White House. He's just like a puppet. He really is. He's got no brain cells. He hasn't. And he kind of brought everybody to some type of joy when he said Rafah is a red line. You can't go into Rafah. And now, Rafah has been invaded. The Philadelphia strip tanks are rolling into Rafah. I would love to get your thoughts on the situation in Rafah. And I did mention earlier, like 1 million people are actually leaving Rafah right now to go to another safe location. I think the latest was Khan Yunis. Again, people were told to leave Khan Yunis. And it's just a vicious circle. I'd love to get your take on that, Brother Yusuf, if you don't mind. Just a quick red line.
Sure. If you recall, Brother Mohammed, on the 9th of May, the guy is 81 years old. He's 81 or 82. I mean, my dad's not there yet, but this guy is 81 years old. And he's senile. He can hardly talk. He doesn't know how to speak. He eats up his words. He doesn't know left or right. He shakes hands with people in thin hair. He speaks to the curtain, talks to himself. And he wants another 4 years, believe it or not. And, with the felony charges and Trump's conviction, you never know. Anything could happen. He could have another 4 years. You've got a senile old man in the White House, one of the most powerful nations on the earth running the show. Well, actually, not running the show. Maybe he has his handlers running the show, but he's a puppet for them. But what happened on the 9th of May is that he told CNN, and these are in the press reports that they generally have, that since Rafah basically can accommodate about 200 to 200,000 individuals, when Israel told the people from the north to go down, and then they bombed them and murdered them, then they went down, they bombed them and murdered them, and then eventually they said going to Rafah, and now they're killing them in Rafah. But the 200,000 moved to about 1.3 million as Israel basically squeezed them in this particular area, like, and they call them cockroaches. That's essentially what they were keeping them there. And he made the point, he said clearly on news, if they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying Israel weapons. And he indicated that that was a red line being crossed. That was a red line being crossed.
But the bomb that they dropped in Rafah, it has come to pass now that that bomb was actually supplied by the US.
That's the whole point. In fact, the weaponry that was used, in fact, I think, when did we do that stream? Where was last week, right? Or sometime, I can't even remember where they burnt the entire camp. People who burned, we saw those images. We showed them, I think it was sometime last week. I'm losing count of the days because of the atrocities that you see happening regularly. And he's discovered that the United States was supplying them with weapons. Well, what about that? What about that? So Joe Biden's administration, they were basically asked about that specific issue. And this is not last week. They were asked about it, in fact, yesterday. And this is what they said. Let me just put this off here. This is the report. This is a report that I want to share with you. And let me see if I can share this and open this news in relation to crossing the red line. Present, share screen. Here we are. I'm just going to try. Let me share the screen. Can you share the screen there? I've just shared. Yeah, that's it there. Now he's been questioned. Look at what Israel has done. What has Israel done now? So his response, Biden's response, so the Biden administration says, Israel hasn't crossed the red line. Israel hasn't crossed the red line. The Biden administration has gone to lengths to avoid any suggestion that Israeli forces have crossed a red line set by President in the deepening offensive in the southern Gaza. This is on the 1st of June. Can
you pause there? We got a question here, and I really want to hit this really hard with the chain ball. This is from Sister Hindsight, who is a Christian. How are people not receiving the truckloads of supplies that enter Gaza every day?
Because they're being stopped. The Israeli military, hindsight 2020, the Israeli military are stopping them. I mean, how much more? Let me show you something. Let me show this guy something. You've taken me off my train of thought. Let me just stop the screen share because you've taken us off. But I don't know how limited you are in and what you see on the news or what you basically have to see. But I'll just show you something here. Let me just show you something. Israelis destroying food aid. Let me share this for you. Let me see. This is here. Here's it here. I'll open this for you right now. I just want to open it for you. Let me get the advert out here. And then I'll open the screen. This is hindsight 2020. What was the question? How come Israelis are not basically, how come with all the truckloads that are going thing? Well, this is the reason. Here's the reason. I'll show it to you now. Let me just open the screen so you can see for your own amusement something that is there. So I hope you're listening, hindsight. If you can see this, let me just share the screen here. Here we are. Mohammed, you can share the screen now. I've got it there. Is it on? Right. Now let me just expand this. Now you see these are these Israeli scumbags. Can you see? Israeli scumbags not allowing, and with the full support of the Israeli military, not allowing food aid to enter Gaza. Who does this?
They strew,
scumbags.
scatter and smash rice, flour and other much-needed food. These Israelis
Look at this. People are starving, hindsight. People are starving in Gaza. You saw those babies. And what are these scumbags doing? What are these Israeli scumbags with the full support of the Israeli regime doing?
determined to prevent this aid from reaching Palestinians in Gaza. This convoy was on its way from Jordan to the besieged Strip, through Hebron in the occupied West Bank, where it was attacked on Monday. Human rights lawyer Sapir Sluska Amran was there.
Behind us, you can see the settlers, Jewish extremists throwing aid meant for Gaza. The army is here, the police have left.
Israeli police insist they're investigating, while Amran says they did nothing to prevent it.
I saw how the police and the IDF supported them in a way that they just allowed them to do whatever they want on the ground. I never saw that someone was arrested, even when I was attacked.
The sabotage didn't end there. As the sun set, many of the Israelis came back and set 3 of the aid trucks on fire.
Can you see that hindsight? They set the 8 trucks on fire. I mean, what more do you need?
The light of day exposed the severity of the damage. The White House has condemned the attack on the aid trucks.
It is a total outrage that there are people who are attacking and looting these convoys coming from Jordan, going to Gaza to deliver humanitarian assistance. We are looking at the tools that we have to respond to this.
But this is not the first time it's happened. Israeli protesters have been blocking aid deliveries to Gaza at the Karam Abu Salam crossing for months. Last week, protesters used rocks to block a road in southern Israel that was being used.
Look at these rocks. This is a road that was used for aid delivery. They've blocked it.
To deliver aid to Gaza. Drone videos showed truck after truck backed up for kilometers. People in Gaza are starving. The head of the UN World Food Programme says a full-blown famine in northern Gaza is working its way south. There, Israel's offensive on Rafah has severely hindered aid from entering through the Karam Abu Salam crossing.
When the crossing is even not functioning for a day, this is having a significant impact on the response that we are able to provide here. So for 7 days now, without humanitarian aid coming in, it's a complete disaster here, a complete disaster.
The aid blocked and destroyed by this group of Israelis is just a fraction of what's needed. The UN says Israel is responsible for what it calls an entirely man-made starvation in Gaza. Laura Khan, Al Jazeera.
So, and this is one last shorter video. I think this is from the Star. Basically, it's a 53-second. This is the Israelis.
Hello,
in action.
and welcome to
Let me
Insurance.
get this silly
All
advert
our
out.
operators are currently busy.
Here we are. That's the Tarkumia checkpoint. So I hope that answers the was that his question? Was that his question, brother?
That's
Mohammed?
her question. Like
her
I said, and I don't want to put anybody down because we know who Hindsight is. She's a regular.
Who is Hindsight?
she's
I
a
don't like
regular-
these people's name. Hindsight,
Yeah.
Christ is a sword, Destiny. Come with your real names. Nobody's going to eat you up. Nobody's going to eat you up on this platform here. We don't eat people up. We just try and unpack the brainwashed mind. So the reality
I like
of the
this.
situation.
I like this. Like Hindsight says, how are they allowed to do that? Well, the
Well,
army let them do that.
It's because the
And I
Israeli
love the-
soldiers allow them to do that. The Israeli
I love the
soldiers
response.
encourage them to do that. The Israeli soldiers encourage this kind of behavior. I mean, this has been going on for months now. So there's no aid coming inside. Then UNRWA was the only legitimate UN United Nations refugee. I keep on forgetting what the acronym stands for. That dealt with the refugee crisis in Gaza. They were designated as being responsible for October 7th, which was rubbish. There was no evidence presented all these months later, no evidence whatsoever. And UNRWA are now basically targeted, and they on a moratorium by basically the United Kingdom, and the funding has stopped from the United States. So the UN Refugee Forum that was dealing with the health and the well-being of the Palestinian refugees, that stopped. The aid that is being sent out by basically these multinational individuals into Gaza, that stopped by the Israelis. And when actual aid workers go into Gaza, what happens to them? They are mowed down, they are killed. Now, it's not just the Palestinian and black aid workers that are killed, even the whites are killed. Because if you look at the World Food Kitchen convoy, there was a vehicle that went in. They told the Israeli military, we are coming in, and this is the route we are going. And the Israeli military says, go ahead. So there's 3 convoys, 1 car, 2 vehicle, 3rd vehicle. Then the Israeli military comes and they blow up and they burn the first vehicle. And the people are burned to death. The World Food Aid Convoy Kitchen. So someone may say that's a mistake. Okay, give it for granted it's a mistake. But then half an hour later, the second convoy is attacked by an Israeli helicopter gunship and is blown up, and all the occupants are burnt alive, burnt to a crisp. The people saw them, it's like a horror movie. They saw them being burnt. If you see horror movies, you'll see these individuals are burnt. Was that a mistake? That wasn't enough, because an hour and a half later, the 3rd convoy was also struck by the Israeli military, and they were burnt alive, burnt to a crisp. Now, this is the World Central Kitchen, or the World Food Kitchen, which was an organization that was trusted by the Israelis, And they, in fact, because they didn't trust UNRWA, so they trusted the World Central Kitchen. And this World Central Kitchen, the World Food Kitchen, gave the Israeli military their coordinates. And then they were still murdered. What do you call that? Now you explain to me, how come there's so much of starvation? It's because this is being enabled. This is what Yoav Gallant stated at the outcome at last year, when he said there shall be no food, no water, no electricity. We are dealing with human animals, so they will be getting nothing at all. And so you see that's a statement of genocidal intent, and you have to juxtapose that with the reality of what these dirty scumbags are doing. Both the Israeli settlers, that's the Israelis, those brainwashed thugs and hooligans, which are then also supported and enabled by the Israeli defense force and the Israeli military, because the IDF is there. The IDF is on the very border where the stones are put, where the Israeli settlers and the Israelis stop the aid. So if you want to ask me the question, why is there no aid and why do they allow it? It's because they're evil by nature. What else do you want me to explain? This is the reality of the situation, hindsight. They are evil by nature. They want people to starve. When you want people to starve to death, there's no need for looking for an explanation. How come Israelis kill people? There must be some reason that they're murdering Palestinians. What's the reason that they're murdering and beheading 15,000 or 20,000 children and babies? What's the reason that Israel is doing that? Does have to be a reason for that. So this is the reality. I hope that kind of clarifies the situation, because I want to bring something to the attention for the stream where we make this local South African Zionist scumbag infamous, and something which I shared with you earlier on this evening, Brother Mohammed. Yes. So I hope that answers the question of who this person called Hindsight. Maybe have the hindsight and look up as to why Israel is doing what it's doing. Have the hindsight and do some kind of research in terms of the belligerency of the Israeli regime. Have some hindsight and look at the Israeli apartheid laws that have been enacted. Have some hindsight and basically go and unpack the 75 years decade strangulation, 77-decade strangulation on Palestinian people. Have some hindsight and look, why would people on October 7th not go back to the area and resist and do what they do if they were basically kept in this refugee concentration camp? where they've been isolated and strangulated from the rest of the world for the past decade and a half. So these are the factors which we need to have. Have some hindsight and look at it.
Yeah, like we were saying at the beginning of the show, either you're living in a cave or you've got your head deep down into the sand and you don't know what's going on. And brothers and sisters, this is why I'm really emphasizing again and echoing to you guys to share these streams. Let's get this message out for those people who don't know what actually is going on in real time on the ground. We need to get more views on this show, inshallah. We got Brother Aladdin in the chat, and I know he's Palestinian and his family are from Palestine, and he has shared some knowledge regarding some of the situations that his family is going through in Palestine. But unfortunately, it's 3 a.m. for him where he is right now, so unfortunately he can't join the show. But yeah, you did send a clip regarding something just devastating, and if you don't mind putting that clip on,
sure.
And just to see how casually this individual, after doing what he did, just openly talked about it like it was like a badge of honor. It's just disgusting. If you can find it, that'd be fantastic.
Well, let me first basically open up the newspaper article so people know the context behind this, because nobody knows a lot of the details. But the situation is that a Durban woman was murdered in cold blood in an alleged Islamophobic attack. Basically, well, it says here, South Africa's Jewish and Muslim community have condemned the killing of Halima Hussein Preston and a knife assault on her family at their home in Durban. It's not too far from where I am. It's
Do you want me to put it onto the screen? Do you want me to put that onto the screen?
Yeah, put that on the screen. Put this on the screen. If you can put this on the screen. Yeah. This is a news article here. Durban woman murdered in alleged Islamophobic attack. So they say Jewish communities, I don't know how many Jewish communities have condemned this yet, but this is a situation. Halima Hussein Preston and a knife assault on the family. The man, and we'll go to the man here, is believed to be the son of a prominent South African businessman. In fact, let me find his name for you. Let's name this guy. He'll probably be appearing in court tomorrow. This is his name. Let me just see his name. His name is, Grayson Bear. That's his name, Grayson Bear. We'll get to him shortly. But his name is Grayson Bear, the owner of Dart Auto Mechanical Car Vehicle. But what happened is that he apparently entered the house and he's allegedly threatened to rape a 10-year-old daughter. And the police responded to the reports of stabbing, and they arrived on the scene. They found a man was found in possession of bloodstain. A woman was lying on the floor bleeding. So were two men who had stab wounds. That's son and the father. And the motive of the violence is unknown. Although a 10-year-old survivor has told the man that the suspect stated that he was stabbing them because they supported Palestine. This is what the 10-year-old stated. The man also threatened to rape the little girl. And we'll come to that. Although they claim that the motive is unknown, you'll see it from the horse's mouth shortly. So this 10-year-old survivor told the police that the suspect stated that he was stabbing them because they supported Palestine. And the sources told that the suspect was taken to a local hospital psychiatric facility. How convenient. Because it's always when there's always a shooting by a white maniac, like in the Vegas shootings or Anders Breivik and so on, always some sort of excuse, psychiatric illness, mental illness, and so on. When a Muslim, for example, like Umar Mateen, if you remember that gay nightclub killing some years back, and even though there was evidence that he was mentally disturbed, no, that had nothing to do with it. It had nothing to do with it. It had everything to do with jihad, everything to do with holy war, everything to do with Islam, everything to do with his religion. So this is the kind of hypocrisy that you see here. So paramedics came on the scene, and the paramedic made the report that paramedics found 3 patients with multiple stabbing wounds. One tried paramedic found that a female believed to be in her 40s had sustained multiple stab wounds to her body. Apparently, they say that she sustained 15, and there was nothing paramedics could do for her, and she was declared deceased. He said Hussein's husband were found with multiple stab wounds. Both were in critical condition and required multiple advanced life support techniques to stabilize them. That's how bad they were. The suspect, who is in his late 30s, whose identity is known to the Mail and Guardian. Well, I'll give you his identity now. His name is Grayson Bear.
Assalamu alaikum. Brother Ismail, Yusuf, please forgive me because
Yes.
I have to go. I posted in private chat. This is a video, live video. They interviewed this Jewish man, and he says that I killed them because they support Palestine. He's a Jew and he's not mentally ill. You can watch the video. I just posted in private chat.
I know. I'm going to share the video shortly, brother. That's a video that Brother Mohammed uploaded to the channel. I will be sharing it right now.
That's why I did.
Thank you very much. We'll be sharing it right now. It's actually uploaded. I don't know if it's the same channel, but it's been uploaded, Brother Mohammed, on his YouTube channel. So what you can do, at least this video is not edited. Whoever wants to clip this and circulate it, and I'll show you his Facebook page as well shortly. So there was a report circulating on local groups of disturbance, a lot of shouting, and that it appeared this had an issue with the family following an earlier argument about his relatives who had been killed in Israel. In a video circulated on social media, apparently filmed at a local hospital, the suspect is talking to an unidentified man, although I recognize the voice of the man who's talking to him. And he asks whether it was because Hussein Preston had laughed when she heard his cousins had been killed in Israel. The man asked him, "You attacked a 19-year-old child. You went from this." So let's basically go to this video. I'll go to this video now. And so people can see who we're actually dealing with. This video has been uploaded on the Cove FF YouTube channel of Brother Mohammed. And I'm going to go to it right now so we can basically expose it here. It's a video. Here we are. I think it's here. I'm going to try and let's just finish for this advert and then I'll expose it here. Let's just stop this.
Yeah, I've just took the adverts off just now.
I saw that there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just share the screen from my side, and then you can make that available. Present, share. Let's make. So this guy's name is Grayson Bear. So we call him Zionist Thug from Durban. Grayson Bear. That's his name. Remember the name. Zionist Thug from Durban. Grayson Bear murders a Muslim woman and stabs and maims family. So this is at a hospital, goes on for about 2 minutes, and he makes what you call in criminal law extracurrial admissions, which, those who are clued up in law know that they can't be used theoretically, but although they could be incriminating at a certain level. But let's just look at this and hear exactly what he has to say. I'll make this as loud as possible so people can hear. This is a conversation they're having.
But you attacked a 19-year-old child. You went for him, apparently the father says. You attacked him first. And then the father came to help, and then you attacked the father 15 times. 15 times you poked the father.
Is he alive?
He's alive, yeah. The son also, you poked him.
Is he alive?
He's alive.
The mother's deceased.
Mother's dead. I mean, you killed an innocent person.
That's him.
My brother.
And now you want to blame it on something else.
She's not totally innocent.
Huh?
She's not totally innocent.
Why?
Regardless of whatever it is,
What she did?
you can't compare words and actions.
She hates my family, my friend.
So that's words.
No, your family.
How you can compare words and actions, bro? Come on, bro.
I know, it's
You
unjust.
grown, bro.
You're right, I'm wrong.
You a big man. How you can?
I don't know
If-
what the
if
fuck-
she
please,
come- if
please,
she-
please, guys. No. It's not a child, but
No.
We're just trying to find out.
What I'm saying is, you killed them, you know your family. Your family.
All right,
You know
all
what,
right.
she and her family thought that it was entertaining that my cousins were killed in Israel.
Your cousin in Israel.
So basically his motive is, he's saying, for those who never caught it, that this woman who he murdered, he just confirmed murdering her. She was happy that apparently, I don't know what the background is, that his cousins were killed in the October 7th attacks, or that she felt it was justifiable, or something along that line.
That was funny.
So that's why you killed her. Because she thought that the Jews. So you are a Jew then?
Not my identity, but I have family there. I've rejected the religion completely.
You're a Zionist.
No, I'm not anymore.
You was a Zionist. So you, after killing her, you decide to leave Zionism.
I'm leaving everything. I don't give a fuck about all of this anymore.
So you're a Zionist.
Once upon a time.
You was a Zionist. So you killed her because she was happy with the Muslims killing the Jews. Is that what you're saying? And you got no remorse in you that 40,000 Muslim women and children were killed in Palestine. The Jews killed 40,000, the Zionists killed. You got no remorse
It's
in
not
that.
even a numbers game anymore. It's an ethical problem that we have here.
He's in chains.
Let's talk about the ethics here.
Tell me.
We can solve this simply.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah, how?
You see, we're fighting our
How we solve it? What is
So this is the guy that's basically, it's still early days, but essentially what you've got here is that's his name. And I just want to basically move on for those who are interested in identifying more about this individual character. Let me log in to my particular page on Facebook if I can get him. But his name is Grayson Bear. Let me just see if I can get him. Grayson. Allow Grayson Bear. Grayson Bear. And let me open it up here. That's the guy that we are dealing with. So this is, I just want to open. So let me share. If this YouTube will allow me to, if this StreamYard will allow me to share this Facebook page of mine. That's in there. We can share this. Can you share this, Brother Mohammed? If you can share. Yeah, that's him there. So this is the person. This is the individual. That's his Facebook page. And he goes under the name of Grayson Bear. This is a closer image of him. I think I can't seem to open this up further. This is what he owns. He's based, apparently studies. Essentially this is his background. This is his Facebook page. This is basically his Facebook page. Photos. Let's see if there's anything else that's there about him. That's apparently, I think, something at a wedding. So essentially, this is a guy, and he murdered this lady in cold blood. Friends, videos, Grayson's videos. Let's just see what else is there about. Work in education, studied at the University of Natal, lives there, but not much. There was, and that's his picture. If you can go to his page, Grayson Bear, and nickname Bob. That's his name, Bob. That's his Facebook page. That's where he is. If you want to find him and add him to your friend, this is the person that, as you could clearly see on it, certainly has to be proven in a court of law, but he's made certain extracurricular statements, which are outside the ambit, and the questioner basically took a video of him, whoever the questioner was. They were not taken under the formal, with his rights being formally explained. So certainly the scenario and the context will have, but it could be self-incriminating at some level. Those extracurricular statements particularly could be used against him, provided the take of the video is basically court to court to testify and confirm the authenticity. The defense can certainly object should he decide to plead not guilty. But from the looks of it, and circumstantially, it's quite clear that he was there in the house and he stabbed the individual. So this is a person, Grayson Bear. That's the individual that stabbed this couple, this woman, and stabbed the entire family. He stabbed the woman to death, stabbed the father, stabbed the son, and the 10-year-old, he threatened to rape the 10-year-old. So this is the reality of the situation.
So so disturbing, very disturbing.
Disturbing. This is what Zionism brings out. They try to assume that it's psychiatric, but Zionism brings out the worst in individuals. So those who want to know and want to share this portion of the stream can clip this and certainly circulate it and hear what he has to say. And the video is basically on Brother Mohammed's YouTube channel. You go to his YouTube channel. He's got this character called Grayson Bear. is basically now going to, and he'll be
Come
appearing
back.
in court, I believe tomorrow. His first appearance is in court tomorrow.
Yeah, subhanallah. Before we end the show, and subhanallah, time goes so fast. Brother Ridwan, thank you for joining us. What would you like to say, Brother Ridwan? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Oh, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, brothers. And you guys are doing a great job. I'm really proud of you guys. And you guys should continue to share the awareness. May Almighty Allah give you guys a lot of asana. I just have a quick question for Brother Ismail or Brother Yusuf, right? So I'm just wondering, what's the extent of Israeli involvement in apartheid in South Africa in the 90s? Because I've been hearing rumble that they were one of the major sponsors of apartheid in South Africa. Do you know what the level of their involvement was? Don't mind me asking.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, well, that's a fantastic question. That is a fantastic question. In fact, I may add something that you know, at this particular juncture right now, there's a kind of a limited. There has been a relationship with Israel, but we'll go to the apartheid era. But at this particular juncture, there's a limited political and diplomatic interaction between South Africa and Israel, mainly due to the fact of Israel's antagonistic attitude towards the Middle East process and its disregard for international law. And of course, the fact that South Africa has basically brought the genocide application against the state of Israel and has basically held them accountable in relation to what they're basically doing. In fact, South Africa is the only country on earth, and now they are being piggybacked by other countries that are essentially basically holding Israel accountable. So that it's clearly created in terms of which the relationship has somewhat or the other basically devolved to a situation whereby there is some degree of antagonism. However, the Israeli embassy continued to exist in South Africa. Now, that's a situation post-1994. In the apartheid era, during the heights of apartheid in the 1970s and the 1980s, the early 1980s, and particularly during the emergency period, Israel and South Africa, apartheid South Africa, were close allies, were very close allies with each other. People don't know that people like the former apartheid Prime Minister Foster, B.J. Foster, in the 70s, he made numerous visits to Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin in the 70s. There was a comprehensive cooperation pact that was entered into between Israel and between South Africa, which was basically then legislated by a joint ministerial committee. And essentially, during the apartheid era, this cooperation committee was sort of a secret defense cooperation. It was signed between the two governments, and the two governments basically stated that they would have some form of cooperation between them on nuclear issues. The prime minister who signed that was someone known as P.W. Botha, a ardent and hardcore racist, and the Israeli prime minister who was viewed as a leftist, but he was equally evil, in fact, more, if not more sinisterly so than Netanyahu himself, because Netanyahu is a dog, the black dog you can see in front of you. This guy, the guys that you need to be cautious about are the people who've got the veneer of respectability. But the person who signed this agreement was Shimon Peres. And that agreement basically covered many areas of defense cooperation at a time when both the countries, South Africa had sanctions imposed on them. Both were unable to essentially source weapons and defense technology on the international market, primarily in Israel, in South Africa's case, because of apartheid. But in relation to South Africa and Israel, there was certainly armaments there was a sale of arms that were basically taking place. There was an intimate relationship between the parties. Israel also developed ties with the homelands. You know, in South Africa, And this is an important thing because in South Africa, we had the so-called independent homelands. Homelands are countries where blacks were given nominal ruling. So you had, for example, places which not too far from me, the Eastern Cape, Transkei. Then in the north, Bophuthatswana. You had Ciskei. You had in the area in which is now known as Zululand. And these particular people, they were called homelands. These were homelands for black people. Similarly, like these so-called enclaves and so-called homelands that they want to create for the Israelis. And Israel developed strong ties with these independent homelands. For example, the premiers of Bophuthatswana and KwaZulu, Lucas Mangope, Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who formed the party known as Inkatha Freedom Party, which in fact stood for these present elections. He's now dead. They visited Israel in 1985. Bophuthatswana, which is now the northwest of South Africa, but it was a homeland during the apartheid era, ruled nominally by blacks, because people always think that this was ironclad ruling by whites all over. But the whites created these so-called homelands where they had these nominal black leaders, puppets, who were basically enablers of apartheid policy, but they were given some degree of might to control their particular region. And one of the areas known as Bophuthatswana, in fact, established a mission in Tel Aviv called the Bophuthatswana House. That's the only place outside South Africa to have flown the homeland's flag against the objections of the Israeli, back then, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So the reality of the situation is that Israel also endorsed South African apartheid. You see, it endorsed South African apartheid. During the 1967 war, you had a situation where South Africans enabled and allowed approximately 1,000 to 2,000 South African Jews to participate in the 1967 Yom Kippur War. These were white South Africans. And they declared Israel as a second home. In fact, when there was an opinion poll that was conducted on white South Africans in the 80s, they stated that their favorite foreign country was Israel. Imagine that. Their favorite foreign country was Israel. Why? Because Israel's also an apartheid state. In the mid-80s, a large number of, and certainly those that retired, but a large number of South African military, South African government officials, they moved permanently to Israel, and they developed numerous projects with the Israeli regime. And they, in fact, even allowed a situation where their children attended Israeli schools. But one of the more sensitive issues is this, where South African government, this is the apartheid government, basically invited and allowed a large number of Israeli scientists to work at a nuclear facility known as Pelindaba. There was a South African nuclear research center. It still exists at this particular juncture. But the South African apartheid government, in fact, invited a large number of these Israeli scientists to attend and to work on this particular nuclear facility. And one of the individuals that I suspect was involved in this particular project was an Israeli who then later gave off their trade secrets, an individual by the name of Mordecai Vanunu. By the way, I've invited him to join us maybe in a forthcoming session. I don't know if he will basically join us, but he's an Israeli former nuclear scientist that has been essentially censored and kept under house arrest by Israel for decades. He was arrested because he basically sold and he parted with the trade secrets and shared some of their nuclear secrets. So this is the reality. Israel also aided the proxy forces like the National Liberation Front of Angola. These were the proxy forces that were organized and trained by South Africa and the CIA, which was there to stall the formation of an independent government. and Israel, in fact, provided aid and support to them. Israel always provided economic aid. Israel provided military aid to South Africa, and particularly this, to a large extent, segmented and ensured that apartheid basically continued. The Israeli and South African intelligence chiefs regularly held conferences with each other, particularly during the Botha regime. And a lot of the SADF soldiers went to Israel to train. When Sharon came to South Africa, he made a point that he visited Southwest Africa, which is now known as Angola, and he stayed there for about a week or 2 weeks, and he told them, and he gave the advice to the South African government back then, that they needed more weapons, and Israel was going to give them more weapons in order to fight the Soviet infiltration in the region and to fight the communist threat. And by the communist threat, they were obviously looking at the ANC government and many of the other liberation governments, the liberation movements that were basically viewed as terrorists. South Africa provided uranium that Israel used to develop its particular weapons. So there was this ongoing relationship that happened during the heights of apartheid. That relationship somewhat continued even after 1994, because South Africa should have shut down its embassy. But because, this is another debate entirely, and I urge people to watch a documentary by an excellent journalist called John Pilger. You just type it on YouTube, called Apartheid Did Not Die. It just shows where the economic apartheid continues in South Africa. And he shows basically what, in fact, transpired post-1994. So the relationship between the parties were strong, even when there were sanctions imposed against South Africa. Israel continued its relationship with the South African government. They continued the relationship. So I hope that answers the question in a kind of a nutshell.
That was an excellent response and a good answer, mashallah, really in depth. And we've got two questions, and we're going to end on these two questions in the chat.
Yeah.
First of all is from Brother Dawood, servant of Allah. Brother Ismail, what does Ireland's announcement change in this situation?
Well, it doesn't. It's not just Ireland. It's Ireland. It's Norway. It's Spain, and they basically have. They essentially are the. They've always maintained. I believe they've always maintained historical relations with Palestine. In fact, Ireland set up an office, a kind of a representative office in Ramallah. Palestine has had a representative office in Dublin. And what it does is that at this particular juncture, what the situation is that it's just simply one amongst many other nations out there that are going to recognize the state of Palestine as a sovereign, as an independent state. Norway has done the same. They've recognized the Palestinian state last week. And I think basically what will happen is they go against the grain of the European Union, because the European Union came out quite strongly. This lady, the president, who Norman Finkelstein describes as a Nazi, that rift basically with Israel will widen. And I think this basically is a kind of a coordinated effort, which will hopefully give rise to other European nations to increase the international pressure on Israel, to condemn Israel, and in fact show that the vast majority of the world basically is in favor of Palestine, or at the very least the formation of a Palestinian state. Whether that basically changes anything in terms of Israel's bombardment, carpet bombing, and destruction of Gaza, I don't think it'll do that. What I think is that this basically shows more and more that Israel is becoming more and more and more ostracized in the world of global opinion, in the world of diplomacy, in the world out in terms of its relations with different parties. In fact, I know last week in Dublin, they raised the Palestinian flag. So I think what's needed now, and not surprisingly with the island, I'm not surprised in any way. I would have been surprised if the British Prime Minister, this boy, this Indian boy that looks so out of place. Apparently, he can't even dribble a football. I saw a video that he had a problem dribbling a football. This British boy, if he were to have come out clearly and made a point, that would have been quite significant. So I'm not surprised by Ireland's stance. I'm not surprised by Spain's stance. I'm not surprised by Norway's stance. In fact, the Irish cabinet formally signed off the decision. So essentially, it's showing that the entire world is waking up. That the entire world is waking up to the recognition of Palestine and the Palestinian people. And I think approximately 90%, or at least 90% of all decent individuals will essentially see that Israel is basically down on the downward spiral to its eventual total destruction.
Yeah, this island statement is very strong, and Ireland always had a love relationship with the people of Palestine, because in the 1840s, the famine, when the British, made the people of Ireland suffer with hunger, and the Sultan sent money and food over for the Irish, trying to break the blockade, in which they did. And ever since that note of history happened, the Irish and the Palestinians have always had a beautiful link and a real brotherhood amongst themselves. Final question from our brother down under, brother Yahya. Brother, thank you for this question. I am curious if the arrest warrants are issued. If they haven't already, who is allowed to arrest those scumbags? And will it be done?
Well, basically, how it works with the International Criminal Court is that if there's arrest warrants that are, and he's basically seeking, the reality of the situation is that the prosecutor is seeking from the ICC arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Israeli leaders. What that basically means is that every single country, which means I think the Australian government, if I'm not mistaken, and the United Kingdom, is a signatory to the International Criminal Court. That would basically mean that if Netanyahu or Gallant were to hypothetically land on British soil or on Australian soil, then law enforcement officials from either Australia, the brother down under, or from the United Kingdom would be obliged by virtue of they being a signatory to the International Criminal Court to in fact effect an arrest. And that's basically what they've done for Putin. You see, there's an arrest warrant against Putin. And Putin was supposed to come down to South Africa for the BRICS summit, I think a year or so ago. And at the last minute, he opted out because even though there was a fairly good relationship between South Africa and Russia, but South Africa, by virtue of the fact that it is a signatory to the Rome Statute and, of course, to the ICC and recognizes its international instruments, would be then duty-bound to execute the arrest warrant and arrest Putin had he landed on South African soil. Now, there was a situation with the Sudanese president where that never happened and he escaped on time, but the same obligation would then follow through with the British government and, of course, with the Australian government. Of course, it won't be executed in Israel, and he certainly won't allow that. But if he were to essentially land in any other country or European country, EU country or African country, which is a signatory to that particular convention and to the Rome Statute and the International Criminal Court, they would be duty-bound to arrest him and effect his arrest. And, of course, hand him over to the International Criminal Court. And he needed to be then, in the circumstances, prosecuted in his personal capacity for war crimes. Now, the reality of that happening is, of course, unlikely. Like China, for example, hasn't ratified the Rome Statute, and of course, they don't recognize the ICC. The United States don't do the same. But those countries that do recognize it will now be duty bound in terms of the international law obligations to effect those particular warrants. And to the same principle would apply if Netanyahu were to theoretically come to the United Kingdom once the ICC issues those arrest warrants, because he's just applied for it. We are waiting. And then, of course, the same would apply for Australia. So that would be my response to you, brother Yahya.
MashaAllah, fantastic. I'm still getting over the first response regarding the link between the Zionists and the apartheid government of South Africa. That was a phenomenal answer. And I'm hoping to get that clipped maybe today or tomorrow.
There's books written on the subject. There are books written on the subject. I'll try and share books on that. But before I go, I want to share, there are different channels. You know, if people want to see channels, they can please subscribe to both myself and Brother Mohammed's channel. We are not here. We ask you to subscribe, not that we want money. We don't want money from anyone. We want to basically share this information out there to the public. But this is a website that I would urge brothers to go to keep up to date with the latest information. Let me share this, and I'm going to try and open another channel, and I'll share both of them as well. So this is one channel. This is a website which is run by the excellent Ali Abu Nima. It's called the Electronic Intifada. If you can share that screen, Brother Mohammed. Yeah, this is a website. Go to so it's electronicintifada.net for the latest features, opinions, analysis, reviews, and blogs. You want to know what happened, the background to the deaths, the murder, the background in terms of what happened really on October 7th. It's a library of resource information and run by excellent individuals. Ali Abu Nima, Maureen Claire Murphy, David Cronin, Nora Barrows Friedman, Asa Wustanley. Asa Wustanley is based in the United Kingdom. Michael F. Brown, not the apologist Michael Brown, but this individual here, Michael F. Brown, Ali Abu Nima. This is an excellent website. There's another website which I would like to share with you. It's called, where are we? 972 Magazine. This is an Israeli investigative journalist, and I think we dealt with this when we basically did, I think I had a stream with you, brother, where we discussed AI technology that is being implemented by the Israeli regime, and that was uncovered by this investigative journalist magazine. You can share this magazine. This is called 972. So you just simply go to 972mag.com, independent journalism from Israel and Palestine. There are lots of Palestinian journalists, basically. There's a phenomenal Israeli journalist, Yuval Abraham. He's the one that exposed the scam and the AI technology that was basically being used. You get some excellent information here. In memory of an Israeli lawyer who never lost her moral purpose. You can subscribe to the channel. It's totally free of charge. Fill in your email and subscribe to it. It's 972 Magazine. Different articles, opinion pieces, and some of the up-to-date information in relation to that. Two excellent. So go to 972. So it's 972mag.com and the Electronic Intifada. Two excellent websites to basically check and study. And of course, on YouTube channel, there's an excellent YouTube channel called Novara Media. It's a British alternative media channel, Novara Media, run by an individual called Aaron Bastani and Michael Walker. And there's another YouTube channel, I think the individual's name, he's based in Greece, is a journalist who writes for The Guardian, called Owen Jones. Owen Jones done some phenomenal work on the Israeli-Palestinian crisis. So Owen Jones and Novara Media, these are excellent YouTube channels that have been keeping us up to date with this. But check out the Electronic Intifada. The Electronic Intifada also has its own YouTube channel. So you can click on the YouTube channel of the Electronic Intifada and essentially get some of the material that you may be interested in relation to some of the stuff, some of the material that you may have. And then, of course, in terms of books that you may be interested in reading books, that you want to know more about the particular subject, well, these are the two books that I would like to I can share with you. This is those out there in the United Kingdom that don't have access to the books. Let me see if I can just get this here. Palestinians face recap. Rashid, here we are. Yeah, let me share the screen here. Rashid Khalidi. If you can share the screen, Brother Mohammed. Yeah, these are the two books. The 100 Years War in Palestine, 659. It's pretty expensive for us. And of course, Gaza Unsilenced. Excellent books. If you want a copy of the 100 Years War in Palestine, just send a link or a request to Brother Mohammed or myself. You can send in your email on this particular stream or in the YouTube comment section, and we'll get you some of this material out there. So you can privately DM Brother Mohammed or myself and get you some of these particular books. And there's a library of resource material. I've got about close to, and I'm not exaggerating, close to probably about 500 books online. I've got hard copies, which I prefer, but online, there's a fantastic brother from the United Kingdom. I mentioned his name in the past, Brother Shuaib Chowdhury, who's a library of resource information. He keeps me up to date with some of the latest thesis and information and books on the present crisis as well, and on comparative religion. And so there's a wealth of resource material. If you want this material, we can share it with you. And of course, Norman Finkelstein. Norman Finkelstein is one of the global authorities. We've had him on the stream in the past. Get his material so you can get knowledgeable on the subject and can deconstruct the propaganda of the Zionists that you see out there. So that's what I can say in this time period.
Thank you, Brother Yusuf. I just want to remind the people that tomorrow we've got another show with our brother Tamir from Kuwait. And he's got a very good topic. Let me see if I can find the thumbnail. Yeah, here it is, guys. Please look out for this one. And this question has been asked so many times on this channel by Christians regarding the scriptures and why were they not preserved. And of course, we believe the Quran is preserved. As for the other scriptures, they were not preserved. Well, let me say the but bit, because tomorrow will be the show. So please have questions ready. It'll be a fantastic show, hopefully about 6:30 UK time, 6:30 UK time. So stay tuned for that. And then on Wednesday, I'm just confirming with Ibn Hazm, Sheikh Ibn Hazm, to join us on Wednesday. And then Saturday, alhamdulillah, brother, we had Sheikh Al-Naqwi. He'll be joining us, inshallah, on Saturday for another stream. So thanks to the sister who's behind the scenes organizing everything for me. I really appreciate that, sister. I know the sister maybe sent you a thumbnail or something, Brother Yusuf. I don't know if you've seen the thumbnail for your channel, and maybe I need to forward it to you. But yeah, I did get a thumbnail for you to use for your YouTube channel. But brothers and sisters, thank you for joining us today. It's been very beneficial. Brother Yusuf, thank you so much. I know you're tired. Yeah. Thanks for taking your time out. And inshallah ta'ala, we can do another show next week. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.